Welcome to our wrap-up forum for local government tonight. We have the candidates for the City Commission at the table, and we'll just go down the table. You each get to introduce yourself, say some things about who you are and why you're running for this. You got about 2 minutes. Ma'am?
Okay. Hi, my name is Sherry Hooper, and I am running for City Commission. Really, as kind of a wild card here. I moved to Abilene 10 years ago, so I'm someone who hasn't grown up in the community. And I believe that's sort of something that I'm bringing to the table. It's a fresh perspective. I do have experience living in big cities prior to now, and I don't know if people here in Abilene know how special Abilene is, especially when compared to big cities, you know, and I just think it's a great community, and I hope I can bring something to it.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall?
Yes. Like I said, I'm Dee Marshall. I'm married. I've lived in Abilene for 37 years. We have 3 grown children. My husband and I own a trucking company together. A little bit of my background: I have a Bachelor of Science with majors in Accounting and Business Administration. I have a Master's of Business Administration with a concentration in Finance. I am a certified public manager, which means I'm qualified to manage any public entity or municipality. I have attended the Kansas Department of Corrections Leadership Academy. I worked 17.5 years for the Department of Corrections as the business administrator, and one of my principal duties was writing and administering the budget. We had a $29 million budget, and I had to ask the state for every penny I got and had to make sure I didn't go over my budget. I'm running for office because this is my home now. I love Abilene, and I think I have talents and experience that I could offer to the city.
Thank you. Mr. Schaefer?
Hi, I'm Tim Schaefer. I'm a native Kansan. I was born in Tribune, moved to Hutchinson when I was a small child with my parents. Graduated high school there in 1971, went into the Army following high school. And after my 3 years in the Army, went to Washburn University and started my educational career while I was a student driving a school bus. 37 years later, I retired from the schools in 2013. 20 of those years were spent as superintendent. My interest in, I have a bachelor's degree in history from Washburn University. I have a master's degree in special education from Kansas State University. And I have a PhD in educational administration from the University of Nebraska. My interest in serving on the City Commission is that, as Ms. Hooper said, this is a special place. I've been in public service all my life, and this is an opportunity for me to continue my career in public service.
Thank you. Mr. Ray?
Hi. I'm John Ray, and currently a city commissioner running for another term. After spending 3 years in the Army and graduating from Emporia State with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, I was offered a civilian position at Fort Riley as a management analyst conducting management studies. Later, I was selected for a position in the Civilian Personnel Office and moved up to the Civilian Personnel Officer position. I've lived in Abilene since 1972. My wife, Mary, and I decided we wanted to live in Abilene because we had an excellent education system to raise a family. On April 28, 2006, I retired from the Department of the Army as a civilian. During my current term, I served 1 year as vice mayor and 1 year as mayor. I am running for another term because there are several issues I would like to be part of the resolutions. These issues are water conservation, the highlands, economic development, and affordable housing.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers?
Yes, my name is Brenda Finn Bowers, and I am the mayor of Abilene currently, which is over next month. I've been on the City Commission for 8 years. This is my 8th year. I'm the director of the Dickinson County Department of Aging. My husband is an Abilene boy. I married an Abilene boy, and we moved back here 12 years ago. We have a son, Dylan, who's a junior at Abilene High School. Like John, the reason I'm running again is there are some things that I would like to see through. In addition to water, which is going to be, it's always been an issue for me, the water supply. But infrastructure, we're getting off on the right foot with infrastructure, and we need to continue that. There's some exciting economic changes in Dickinson County and Abilene, and I want to be a part of that too. And that's why I've decided to run again.
Ms. Bowers, did I hear you say you're head of the Department of Aging here in the county?
Yes, yes, I am.
I have a complaint. I'm not liking the way aging is treating me.
Well, they didn't put me in there because I'm doing it well.
Okay, all right. So you get the first question because you're such a willing volunteer. What is your vision for Abilene for the next 10 years?
Oh, gosh. Abilene, when Alco left, that was devastating to the city of Abilene, and it was devastating to the city, and it was devastating to their employees. However, I absolutely believe that we would get through it and come through the other side better for it. Who thought for 1 minute that the 3 Alco buildings would be filled? And they are. There's been some economic development growth in the city of Abilene. I want to see that continue. I want to see the quality of life that we have here in Abilene. That needs to continue the way it is, and we are doing that. We have a new hospital facility, and we're going to have new schools. We have a great Department of Aging. I think there's a lot of good things coming up in the next 10 years for Abilene. It's been tough with the economy the way it is. But the economy is starting to turn around, and I think Abilene is going to see some big changes in the future, and I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. Mr. Ray?
My vision for Abilene in the next 10 years is to find a solution where the city does not, excuse me, city does not have to pay about $350,000 in annual debt service on the Highlands. One possible solution is the land bank, which was approved in our 9 February 2015 meeting, commission meeting. The primary goal of the land bank is to return property that has been acquired or donated to productive use. Also, I'd like to see water conservation. The city of Abilene manages 2 underground water sources, Sand Springs and the river, and that are used to provide approximately 3,200 water customers, including Dickinson County Rural Water District Number 2. On any given day, the water treatment plant produces between 1 and 3 million gallons per day to meet our community's demand for water. Although the water treatment plant can produce enough water to supply up to 4.5 million gallons per day, it is constrained by the amount of water that can be physically pumped from the ground for treatment. Equally important is the number of water rights that the city owns and manages. While the city has water rights for about 700 million gallons of water, it is only able to use 300 million of its water rights because of complexities in state water laws. During hot and dry summer months, the city typically treats 3 million gallons to meet demand. This requires the wells to be heavily utilized in order to produce enough supply to meet demands. Additionally, well depths have been at their lowest recorded level since 1974. For these reasons, city officials declared a water emergency, and we implemented our emergency implementation plan. And then that's about it.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Tim.
Abilene needs to be a community comfortable with growth, and I think the hospital and the school have stepped up to the plate and have done remarkably well. And we have at least four school board members here tonight. So there is an interest with the hospital and the school board in the advancement of the community of Abilene. So I think in the next 10 years we need to take a good look at growth in the community, and part of that is an aggressive economic development program. And economic development is not a strength of mine, but certainly willing to learn about economic development and how that applies to the community of Abilene. And one of the things that I had noted in my notes as well is that water is an issue, and That's something that we're going to have to look at doing something about. I guess in my mind, how we can try to get more industry or more business here with our limits on water is a problem that I'm having trouble equalizing. Now, that's not to say that I want to throw everything out with the bathwater, but it's something that certainly needs to be studied.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall?
Yes, I too agree that we need to conserve our water and face that problem. I also would like to see economic growth. I think we should have a vibrant downtown, find ways to bring manufacturing retailers alike into town and increase job opportunities.
Ms. Hooper?
Yes, everything that's been said is great. I agree with it, and my vision is just in general fiscal health. And I picture too more of a thriving Abilene. You know, we've come through some tough years, and I think now's the time to kind of grab hold, and let's get this thing moving forward again. As I said earlier, I think Abilene is special, and I think we've got a unique combination of history and charm and Midwestern friendliness. So let's get businesses that can stay open and have some fiscal health, a thriving economy, and jobs. That's what I like.
Thank you. Mr. Ray, I'm going to start you with this question.
Okay.
How do you feel about preservation of downtown buildings, including our city building? Are you willing to promote preservation, and how would you do it?
That's a tough question, but I've always liked history. I'd like to see the buildings preserved. The problem we have is it costs so much to renovate those type buildings, and there's certain things you can't do in an historical facility because of the state. I would like to see it, but I don't know that from a money standpoint it's feasible.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers?
I think preservation of the downtown is very important. The city has taken strides with our business loan program for economic development. 2 of the loans went out to 2 of the businesses downtown who have expanded their businesses. And we're going to have the loan program again this year. We have the special tax area. We have a historic district. As far as the city building is concerned, I think that we need to take another look at the city building. I think we need to invest the money, which we have. The city has put away money. Several years ago, we put some money away, knowing that eventually we would have to replace the city building. I think we need to take some of that money and hire a specialist to take a serious look at that building and whether or not it can be rescued or whether or not it can be rehabilitated. I think the downtown is extremely important, and I agree with the preservation. I think the city has done some great things for preservation and will continue to do more. The land bank, that's derelict and abandoned properties that could eventually come to the land bank, which means that we could turn around and sell them for someone to fix or, use it as an incentive for someone to move a business into the downtown building. There's a lot of options available for us to help the downtown, and I think we've done some, and we're going to do more.
Thank you. Ms. Hooper?
Yes, preservation of downtown in an ideal world, I would say absolutely. I think that adds so much to what we already have. But in already figuring out, and you've already heard the cost of rehabbing, a really old building, probably you have to go deeper into your pocket for that. And I am very new to this, so I'm totally unaware of what kind of cost we're looking at and if we would have to take it from somewhere else in order to do so. But, in an ideal world, I would like that if it weren't cost prohibitive.
Ms. Marshall?
Yes, historic preservation is very important to me. I belong to the Daughters of the American Revolution, and I live in a 130-year-old home, so history is very important to me. That being said, though, I know that you have to take a look at these old buildings and see if it's economically feasible to do anything with them. You have to make sure the wiring's up to code. Is it efficient? What's the HVAC system like? Can we make it safe? What's it like to maintain that building, the cost of maintaining it. Also, I know because of my own home that you get into these old buildings, you start opening up one problem and you just open a whole bunch of other problems, which can quickly cause budget overruns.
Dr. Schaefer.
I think the question deals with two separate facility issues. One is the city building, the other is buildings within the community. As you well know, we've lost two important buildings in Abilene in the last several years. We can't afford those types of things to happen, so we need to, as Mayor Bowers said, there are vehicles to encourage people to renovate their properties and facilities. And then the other issue is the city building. I don't know if you've been in the city building, but it certainly has its issues. Whatever the plan would be there, the last plan didn't work, but certainly we'll go back to the drawing board and try to come up with a plan that will work, whatever that might be, renovate that building or build new.
Several of you mentioned growth in the future for Abilene in your vision statement, and you know, we have a follow-up question, and it is, how would you balance preservation and commerce? And I substitute growth. So how would you balance preservation and growth? Volunteer?
I've been to several meetings in the last month with the City Commission, and I think a perfect example of this is the Quick Shop. There's some growth potential there, working on the Quick Shop property at 14th and Buckeye, and yet there's some issues with the neighbors. I think the City Commission, from my view, did a good job in balancing those issues and studying those issues and looking at them thoroughly. That's the only specific issue of which I'm aware. I imagine there are others that they've dealt with in the past, and there are probably some coming in the future. Certainly they have to be dealt with on an individual case and try to work through the issues as they arise. I asked a city employee earlier today if there's a long-range strategic plan, and this employee responded that there was. It needed work. And I was reminded of a quote by the man whose this building is named after. Said, "In preparing for battle, plans are useless, but planning is essential." So even though there is a plan, the planning, the ongoing planning is essential in how to deal with those, because plans, as soon as you put it on paper, needs to change. But you have to keep after it and keep after it and keep after it before you achieve the most ideal situation.
Anybody else want to take that follow-up?
I echo what Tim was saying. You know, we have to balance with our neighbors, not just think of the community too. I mean, find incentives, ways that we can work with each other and keep the buildings that need to be kept.
In relation to what Tim said about the Quick Shop, that's a classic example of commerce and progress. There were some issues, and the city sat back and took its time. This process started in October, and it just finished in February. So we took our time to deal with that issue. And I can't see us not doing that with preservation also. It can be done. We have done it on more than one occasion, mostly in the last couple of years, and we could certainly do it for preservation.
Ms. Hooper, Mr. Ray?
Pardon?
You want to take a shot at the follow-up?
Well, I agree with Tim mostly. There are certain things in the city building that is very hard when the police department doesn't have enough room to do their job, to store their equipment and also anything they picked up at the crime scene. The fire department is crowded. Their living quarters is a lot to be desired. And when they start their big trucks up and run them, all the fumes go up in the living quarters. So there's things that maybe doesn't fit in the current city building. Also, our city building, it was built in 1926, which is almost 100 years ago. So.
Yeah, and it sounds to me like the spirit of compromise is the primary thing that I've been hearing. You know, it's we want to progress, we want to update, and then still preserving. So you're kind of straddling that fence. So, but it does sound like, you know, we make the effort, and this commission board has done that, made the effort to please as many parties as involved can be. And in preservation, you know, maybe the facade of the building could be preserved when we rehab the inside, and, you know, I just don't know until we get into it. But I do believe it's more about just the spirit of compromise and creativity. It sounds like we've got that going on.
Thank you. Mr. Schaefer, you're going to take this next one. What do you think are the most pressing challenges facing the community, and what are your ideas in addressing those challenges?
We've touched on this before, but I think water is a major issue. We have the water we need for today, but certainly we're going to, if we have any fantasy about growth, we're going to have to do something. And I don't know, I don't have the history that the current city commission has on how to handle that, but I don't know that raising the cost until people can't afford it is the way to handle that. There's got to be some way to deal with the water issue. And I think that's probably a major challenge that's not going to get any easier as we move into the future. Certainly, weather patterns seem to be changing. I've lived here since 2010, and I can almost count the rains on my hand. It's been pretty dry. So water is going to be an issue that we're going to have to deal with. And parenthetical pause, I don't say that you haven't been dealing with it, but I just see that as we move into the future, that's going to have to continue to be a conversation on what to do about that. Okay.
Mr. Ray.
Well, I have to agree with Tim, a lot of things he said. You know, I'd like to see the city would come up with increasing affordable housing to attract young families to move to Abilene. In addition, we have an excellent school district and schools, which is a big plus in attracting young families to move here. With the Eisenhower Library, Museum, and Boyhood Home, Dixon County Heritage Center, Greyhound Hall of Fame, Steam Engine Train, Old Abilene Town, and Sealy Mansion as tourist attraction. And we have an excellent county fair and rodeo. And with the 2017 celebration of the 150th year of the Chisholm Trail, we should see an increase in tourism and visitors.
Brenda, I would assume you would agree that at the 150th Chisholm Trail Days, it'd be a great time to have a community rain dance.
I won't dispute that. Water and infrastructure are my two concerns. Since 1996, the city has allocated money in the budget every year to do water exploration, and as a result of that, this year we have a well that'll be going online shortly. It's hard to find. We've been looking for a long time. The infrastructure is antiquated. We have situations where there are sewer and water lines that are inside the head of some employees who have been there for 30 years. We need to do something about that. Those are my immediate concerns for the next 10 years. Those are going to take 10 years. Drainage issues. First Street, the destruction of First Street was heavy equipment and water, and it took a lot of money to fix it. And historically, Abilene has not been good stewards of their property. For example, the library and the pool. We have to be better stewards of our property, and I think we need to look at that in the next 10 years also.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hooper?
Yeah, and the Highlands has been mentioned. I know everybody understands that that's an issue to be dealt with, and as was mentioned earlier, this land bank thing that's become available seems like it's a wonderful starting point, and one that just sort of seemed to appear. I don't think many of us knew that this option even existed until recent days. So, but I do also want to mention taxes. I think taxes have been, you know, they're pretty tough for people right now, and I understand everything that we want to change and improve. It's all going to cost money, so I'm for spending and improving, but I would like it to be just responsibly and thoughtful, you know, until the economy really does come back for us.
Ms. Marshall?
I agree with what Sherry says. We are still in economical hard times. We need to watch our budget, not spend every penny we have. Try to live within our means, quit raising property taxes on people. We need to balance growth with our resources, probe ways to get new businesses into town, create job opportunities. As John mentioned, the affordable housing, all of those issues.
Well, you get the next question first. So what's our greatest opportunities here in Abilene, and how can you help us capitalize on those?
Well, we're fortunate with our geographic location. We're located at the crossroads of the industrial United States. We're right on I-70. We're real close to 135, which makes us very accessible for getting goods in and out of Abilene. We already draw a lot of tourists here and shoppers for antique stuff, the Eisenhower Center, this complex here, all of these things. So now we need to get a way to have money stay in town, expand manufacturing, expand retail businesses, work with developers, with other communities, see what they're doing. Use our location to help us grow.
Ms. Hooper?
Yes, I agree with all of that, and to just expound upon our location, also our name, and what Abilene offers just to the state of Kansas. I really do think it is an exceptional little town that is a standout among the state, and if anyone's traveling through Kansas, they should plan an overnight here, or maybe even consider relocating here or retiring here. I think we've got some beautiful boulevards, all the history that was mentioned earlier, and then the library, and the presidential history. And I think it's unique. So tourism, I think, we should capitalize upon that. I think that's a big thing. And then the affordable housing, I agree with that as well. Bring in more new blood, not just me.
Ms. Bowers?
I think the city and the county have come together to create the Economic Development Corporation, and they're in the process of searching for a director. And the city and the county each contributed money, and each city within Dickinson County is paying a dues, which is 25 cents per person, depending on the population. And they're taking some really good steps. Historically, if someone wanted to bring a business to Abilene or to Dickinson County, they would call around. Well, our hope is that this Economic Development Corporation is going to be your one-stop shopping. So if someone is looking to start a manufacturing business, they're going to call the Economic Development Corporation, who can show them properties within Abilene or anywhere else in Dickinson County, and incentives that are available so that everything is right there. That kind of organization will entice businesses to come, I believe. And I am not necessarily convinced that we'll ever see another Russell Stover. But I do think that we can attract smaller businesses. I also think that, like Ms. Hooper said, we should definitely capitalize on our quality of life. You and I have discussed this at length about our children moving away. Children today don't find traveling from Abilene to Salina or Abilene to Manhattan a big commute anymore. So they would be, wanting a quieter quality of life. We could advertise Abilene in the schools and the hospital and the Eisenhower and all the things that are available. And they could work in Manhattan and Salina. I think those are all things that we need to look at.
Thank you. Mr. Ray?
I'm going to just agree with a lot of what people said, but the one thing that I'd like to mention under economic development is a great opportunity. Our city manager has developed a program to provide bonus money to residents who find industry outside of Dixon County who are willing to relocate to Abilene. I think that's great.
Thank you. Tim?
Well, the advantage of going last on a question like this is I can agree with everybody.
Yeah.
I would just reiterate, though, that we have a great hospital and we have a great school system. Without those two pillars, a community really has nothing. The city needs to support those two entities to their maximum use. The opportunities, yeah, tourism, I can't remember the numbers, Carl, but
175,000.
okay, that people that come into this community because of this place. And if we can develop the other locations that are of interest to come anywhere close to that, or even take those same 175 and have them move to some other venues within the community, that keeps them here and they spend money. So the opportunities, we certainly have a wonderful community. I live here because I choose to live here. I have 2 kids in school, and we like Abilene. We want to be here, and the opportunities, we need to share those opportunities with others so that they can understand what a wonderful place Abilene, Kansas is.
Thank you. You didn't get a chance yet, did you, Ms. Marshall? Didn't we start with Ms. Hooper on this question?
No, you started.
I did? Okay, well, he's right. Well, then you get the tough follow-up.
I do.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
All right. As you look at opportunities and what we have that is good, and everybody has been very lavish in their praise about our community, what role should the city play in selling that vision to the rest of the world? That's called advertising.
Well, we could advertise on eagle.com, I suppose.
You could.
The mayor mentioned the Economic Development Commission?
Corporation.
Corporation. And certainly that is one leg of a table to present the opportunities that are here. There's some startup companies in town that are trying to get the word out about Abilene. Certainly advertising, you've got to be able to connect with people. There's a wide variety of ways to do that. We certainly have a Convention and Visitor Bureau whose major task is to connect people with Abilene and the opportunities within Abilene. Certainly the city can support those. The only one of which I'm aware at the moment is the corporation. So I'll stop there.
Okay, anybody else want to take a shot at that follow-up?
Well, we could also do things like other little communities do around us, like Inman has the Kansas show, whatever, that goes all over the state of Kansas, but those things are promoted in other communities. There's no reason why we can't promote ourselves in these other neighboring communities and draw people in and let them see what Abilene has to offer.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I think the CVB could expand its outreach. I agree that we should advertise, but that costs money. But I think there are ways that we could definitely, the city could definitely help to advertise Abilene as a great place to be. I agree.
Anyone else? John?
Well, I'll just tell you a little tale. I went to high school at Concordia, and we used to come down to Abilene for track meets and football games, and I always remember Buckeye Boulevard coming in, and the trees and the big houses and mansions when we came in here. And on the back of my mind, I always felt like Abilene would be a good place to raise a family. And guess what happened when I got a position at Fort Riley? We decided to move to Abilene, and mainly because of the education for a family.
Anyone else before we move on?
I think we should get Clint Eastwood to make a movie here.
Any nays there? I didn't think so. What do you think are the most important duties, responsibilities for an elected official, Ms. Hooper?
This is, again, I'm brand new at this, but I liken it to the fact that I was employed and then I became an employer. And I learned a lot about being an employer from, working for people. And I liken the same thing as I've been a citizen of Abilene, I've been a taxpayer, I've lived here in the community, and I think that translates over to what I will bring to this position, is that I know kind of, what it feels to live like out there, and I feel like I've got my thumb on the pulse beat of the community. I'm one of you, and I believe my position will be an extension of the community. I don't have any special interest necessarily. I'm kind of a free agent, but I think that makes it interesting because I truly do love Abilene, and that's who I tend to find in Abilene.
Thank you. Brenda?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. I have to find which one it was, though. What do you think are the most duties and responsibilities for an elected official, most important duties and responsibilities?
I think one of the most important duties and responsibilities of a city official is to listen, to be open, and to be transparent. I think those are important. They're duties and responsibilities of any elected official, I believe.
Thank you. Mr. Ray?
I agree with Brenda. You have to have the ability to read and listen effectively, to analyze and understand a large amount of information in order to make decisions and explain your rationale on complex issues that are important and that may have an impact on Abilene citizens or is not what they desire.
Thank you. Dr. Schaefer?
One of the things that happens when the word gets out that you're running for a board like this is that everyone wants to tell you how to do it. And one thing that people have told me is you have to be able to listen, keep an open mind, but when you make your decision, it's your decision, and you have to be able to defend it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Marshall?
Well, particularly in this position, we are the commission is the stewards of the taxpayers' money and the citizens' interests. So before we make decisions, we should thoroughly investigate, try and make an informed decision and as closely match the community wants as you can. You can't please everybody. Unfortunately, the budget's one of the most important aspects of the office. It's not a today problem or an economic problem. It's an ongoing endeavor. The budget's a plan for every business to guide themselves and to reach their goals and aspirations. So we need to budget responsibly, use those taxpayers' dollars wisely, and make sure we maintain a healthy reserve fund. Like I said, we are the stewards of the taxpayers' money, and we need to be responsible with that money.
Thank you. Brenda, how will you balance private interests with broader community interests when faced with controversial issue?
Again, I think you have to have an open mind and you have to listen. You cannot announce that you feel one way about one thing. You have to keep in your mind that you have an opinion, but then you have to be willing to listen and observe and pay attention. You have to take the time to make an informed decision. And that means listening to other people.
Thank you. Mr. Ray?
Yeah, You have to be consistent, you have to be open and able to respond and explain reasons why you voted on issues, respond on questions. And then I agree with what everybody else has said.
Thank you. Mr. Schaefer?
Assuming private interest is not a conflict of interest, which would be a whole different thing. Certainly we all have opinions about how things need to happen or should ought to have happened. But certainly part of the responsibility, the role of being a city commissioner is that you have to be willing to listen to people. Don't make foolish promises, except maybe if this is a foolish promise that you'll listen and you will take, because even though one person tells you their story, somebody else is telling you a different story. So there's automatically a conflict there. You can't promise both, or there's going to be a problem. So you have to be able to listen to those, balance those, make the best informed decision that you can, and then make your decision and be willing to defend it.
Ms. Marshall?
Well, through my work experience, I said I worked for the Department of Corrections. I worked actually in a prison. I taught school at night, so I've worked with a broad variety of people. I was fortunate enough to have always been the boss, which I like that, but it trains you to be able to go outside yourself and see the big picture, listen to the points of views of everyone else, and not focus on what you want. Training in total quality management helps you gain that too, and I've had that.
Thank you. Ms. Hooper?
Yeah, I find people to be so interesting. They're also individual, and I've learned from, I used to have a lot of preconceived notions, and through many years of experience and discovering shockingly that I was wrong sometimes, that I have really learned, I guess, the art of asking questions and listening to people, and it's always fascinating to me, you know, where they're coming from and how they see something when I have such a different opinion of it. But I actually find that part very interesting. I do think it's something that I'm going to have to get even better at with this position. And there was something else I thought of, but you know what, I forgot it.
Now, if you think of it, you can
All right.
remind us. Mr. Ray?
Yes.
What do you think are the three most important values to guide locally elected officials in their work?
Be consistent, be open and able to respond and explain reasons why you voted on issues, respond to all questions.
Dr. Schaefer?
I would take what John said and put them into 3 words: integrity, honor, and dignity.
Ms. Marshall?
I think you need to be fair, consistent, have high ethical standards. You have to have the ability to listen, to discuss issues in non-confrontational ways, recognize that I don't have all the answers. You have to earn the trust of citizens and your peers as well, and you have to have the vision to focus on short-term goals while managing, long-term goals while managing short-term goals.
Ms. Hooper?
Believing I need to work on staying informed on the issue at hand, listen to all sides, and then consider the overall effect ultimately of what the decision would be.
Ms. Bowers?
Honesty, integrity, and openness.
Thank
And
you.
openness means being open to admitting you're wrong, admitting that your point of view is perhaps misguided. You have to be open to criticism. I think those are the 3 things.
Okay, thank you. Before you drink that water, you get the next first question. What strategies will you use to engage the public prior to making a decision?
Certainly a person has to be available to listen. I've got them listed here. I'm on the church board. I'm on the Kiwanis board. I'm on the Great Plains Theater board. I'm on the library board. I'm in the community, and I'm available to people to hear their concerns. You have to be willing to listen and not make bold promises that you won't be able to live up to. So it's a matter of being available and being willing to listen to people.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall?
Well, I think you need to be accessible, whether that be by email, telephone, face-to-face interactions. I think need to have research creative ways to reach the public, get them interested in their community more, and get them involved in the meetings, whether it be by social media, newspaper, or I know people don't always read those things, but find some creative ways to get the public to become more involved as well.
Ms. Hooper?
Yeah, I kind of saw this differently. I looked at it as it's the public's responsibility to kind of seek us out. We have public meetings where the issues are discussed. As a board member myself, I would certainly want to be approachable and accessible, certainly, to talk to anybody anytime. But I do think if the public's got interest in a topic, that they would want to come here as it's presented.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers?
Over the past 8 years, I have never discouraged anyone from calling me at home. I get called at work. I get emails. Lots of people come by my office to visit me. I have never discouraged that. I am always open to that. And I always tell people, if we don't get this input, we can't really make an informed decision. It makes our decision-making easier if you give us this input. We were in hearty support of moving the study sessions to nighttime, and that's been a good response. We've had more people at the study sessions in the evening than we have had in the morning. The city manager has a blog. We have an interactive website. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. David?
He's not currently. He's paying rapt attention right now.
I know. It was a quiz. He didn't pass. We're out there. We're out there, and all the commissioners make themselves available. But, we do exercise the social media.
John?
I don't have too much to add to that.
Okay. All right, well, then we'll move on. What is your idea of leadership, and how will you bring that philosophy to the work of an elected official? And that's Ms. Marshall.
All right. Well, like I said, in my working life, I was always the person in charge, so I found one of the best qualities any leader can have is being a good leader. By being an attentive listener, listen to what those people are actually saying to you. You have to be a problem solver. Many times you have to be a quick thinker. And you have to be able to see the big picture and be able to think outside of the box. I think the most important quality, though, is being fair, consistent, and honest of all people, all settings.
Ms. Hooper?
I think leadership is about enticing people to become engaged with the process, whatever that is, versus just leading the way and telling them about things. I think it's about more of an emotional thing where they are excited and inspired and that kind of thing. And as far as implementing that, I would just hope that, the issues at hand would be, if people have got something that they truly are interested in, they will come, they will, be present at the meetings, they'll have questions, they'll have comments.
Ms. Bowers?
I think a good leader works diligently at not micromanaging. I follow the motto, nose in, fingers out. A good leader motivates people to be the best that they can be. And a good leader is honest. Honesty is I can't express that enough. As you know, sometimes I can be brutally honest, but I am honest. And I think that's important as a leader. People need to know where you stand. They'll respect you more.
Mr. Ray?
I think as a leader, you need to have an open door policy so that the employees can come into your office and talk to you I also find out if they made a mistake. I would ask them, okay, what are you going to do to correct this mistake? Because a lot of mistakes where I was supervising was that they might get too much pay or didn't get enough pay. So I wanted to find out from the employee, how are you going to fix that? And then let them do that rather than have somebody else do it on that. But you need also that you need to keep your employees informed. And you didn't have to walk. I used to walk around to my employees and during duty time, and I talked to them and I asked them how things were going at their home or how their family was doing or something like that. And I think that's a good thing to do also as a leader.
Mr. Schaefer.
Well, I understood the question to be leadership in terms of the elected official. I think that the ability of the individual to create a vision for the future, and you said something, you said entice, and I like that word. The idea is that if the future looks like this, then we have to create the situation so that we can get to that future. And you can't do it by browbeating people. You can't get there by various nefarious ways. You've got to get there through talking, visiting, sharing. You've got to be able to listen and maybe modify maybe the pieces of that vision. But once that vision is established, then leadership is to get from point A to point B with the most productivity and the least amount of damage.
Okay. Here's a question that wasn't on your list, so because it'll be very entertaining, I'll let Brenda go first. I found it interesting, Brenda, that both when the city did a strategic plan and the Chamber of Commerce is putting this on, we did a strategic plan several years ago, that the number one item that came out is to find a way to help existing businesses before moving out into the fishing for new ones. So I would ask you and the rest of the panel to comment, what's the city's role and what specific actions can be taken to promote that strategic goal?
I think, as I had mentioned before, I think there are tax benefit districts. There are incentives for expanding your businesses. There's the grant program. I mean, everybody understands that these have been tough times, and the smaller businesses tend to suffer. That's why we wanted to do this grant program, to give them the ability to move forward and do more. I think that's the role of the city, is to do whatever we can do to help them. And I think we are absolutely on the right road. You know, it was starting from 8 years ago, none of this was in place. This has come in with the last year or two that we've started doing this. And one of the reasons is because we have an innovative city manager who thinks outside the box. The land use bank, that has potential to help other businesses. If they need to move, they want to get to a bigger space, you know, we may have that opportunity within the land bank. So I think the city is on the road. I think we're doing a lot right now, and we will do more.
If this thinking outside the box is the solution, the box must be the problem?
Could be.
Can't we just get rid of that box?
Could be.
Mr. Ray?
We'll try that. I agree a lot of what Brenda said. I think that's when you look for leadership from the city, just what she said. I think there's a lot of good things going on, thanks to David Dillner, and he thinks outside the box, like she said. And it's a pleasure working with him.
Mr. Schaefer.
Repeat the question, please.
Okay. Both of the chamber and the city on separate years came up with a strategic goal rated #1, that to grow Abilene, you had to work to help existing businesses grow. And then you could move out into finding new businesses to come in. So how can we help new businesses, and what's the city's proper role there?
Well, I'll take your word. I'll take it at your word that there is a plan. I haven't seen that plan, but I think one of the things that we can do is address infrastructure. We certainly have been addressing infrastructure. We have some street projects going. It seems like Buckeye's constantly under some kind of revision or upgrade, but 3rd Street had a much-needed overlay put on this year. So I think businesses, you know, people like driving on smooth roads. So I think infrastructure is a way to support and entice people to come to the businesses in town. We talked about water earlier. So I'll say the plan that has been developed plus infrastructure.
Okay. Ms. Marshall.
Well, I agree with what Tim says. It's nice to know that there are these plans in motion to help the local businesses, and I would also want to add that protecting my property taxes. Property taxes have gone up significantly for businesses, and that's one way we can help them. That's quite a kick.
Ms. Hooper.
Yes, and, yeah, thinking along the same line, I don't know what incentives we are offering out there for new businesses to come here, but why can't those be offered to existing businesses, although they're probably for new locations, new buildings. But, yeah, I mean, definitely if there was a way to kind of equal the playing field with that, offering them comparable incentives. I was just thinking about a punch card where we could all just have a punch card, and we just, you know, if we use every business like throughout the month, we can get something at the end of the month. Everybody solicited.
Last question quickly. What's the best idea you're going to bring as a newly elected city commissioner to your first session? John.
Let me think on just a little bit here.
Tim.
Well, my first one's going to be, what chair do I sit in?
There you go.
No, one of the things that I think a person has to be careful of is, you can't go in and start rattling the cans and shaking the trees from day one. You have to be able to build relationships with the people with whom you're working. And I think that probably the first thing that a person needs to do is to understand that there's a lot to learn in the beginning. A lot to learn.
Ms. Marshall.
Well, like Tim said, first you need to study what's going on before you can offer new ideas. You don't just walk into somebody's home and say, change the draperies. You need to know what's going on, and then I would start offering my ideas.
Ms. Hooper.
Yeah, I've got a lot to learn, and I'm committed to that. I really want to get up to speed on all the issues. That would be the very first thing for me, and listen a lot. I think I've got a lot of good people here I can learn from. So.
Ms. Bowers.
I don't believe that any one person has the best. I think we all have good ideas, and we come up with the best plan. But I don't think anyone has the best. It takes a village.
Well, so we're 4 for 0 for 4 so far. So John gets to come up with a good idea.
Well, I think that there's a lot of things that you can do. One thing that I'll tell you that we haven't talked about was the excellent city workforce that we have here in Abilene. Snow removal, they're very good at that. But we have an excellent city workforce. And I think that there's things, I think we work in the current city commission, we work very well together. We don't always agree, but we've done, I think, an excellent job.
Okay. We are at the end of our time, right on the button, so that was well done. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for volunteering to serve. Those of you who are serving now, and for those who would like to, we appreciate that as well. Thanks for coming to face the public, face the cameras. Would you join me in sending them home with a nice round of applause?